Let's take a look at how to strip more wire from a pickup. Let's say we have a pickup we want to connect. Maybe it's brand new and doesn't have any wire exposed yet. Although nowadays they often come with a bit of wire already stripped, but sometimes we may need to cut it for some reason. Maybe because it was poorly connected or the wire ends were burned or damaged. So what we're going to do is expose more wire, remove the insulation, so we can make the connections we need. For example, if the ground wire goes to the potentiometer along with the other ground wires, and the hot wire goes to the switch, we'll need more wire length than what we have here. Also, if the pickup goes directly to a potentiometer, it's often much easier to work with extra wire. A good length to expose is about 2 inches or 5 centimeters, maybe a little more, and that's what we're going to strip. To do that, we'll take a utility knife and apply light pressure all the way around the insulation that covers the wires. You can already see the cut line, but it hasn't opened yet. So I'll cut a little deeper, following that same line. There's no need to apply a lot of pressure. This is a step-by-step process. If we press too hard, we risk cutting the inner wires. Especially on this type of pickup. This is an Epiphone and it doesn't have the protection that, for example, a DiMarzio. DiMarzios usually come with plastic insulation and aluminum shielding. Now that I've exposed a little bit of wire, I'll press a bit more on the other side. Once we get to the center, we start bending the insulation to help separate it. Then we simply grab the insulation and slide it off until the wires are fully exposed. Next, we separate all the wires. We'll also take the braided shield, which works as a ground, and twist it together. This braided wire will go to the potentiometer along with the ground wire. Once we have the wires ready, we'll strip a little bit more from each one. I'll use my wire stripper set to the right gauge and remove about 1/8 to 3/16 of an inch of insulation from each wire. Keep in mind that when we heat the wire with the soldering iron, the insulation will shrink back a little, melt, or evaporate. So it's better not to strip too much from the start. This way we'll have our wires ready to work with. One thing I like to do is add a bit of insulation to the ground wire and reinforce the other wires. But before that, I need to identify which wire belongs to which coil. I set my multimeter to 20 kiloohms and start testing the wires against each other. At first, I get no reading. But then I get a reading of 6.9 kiloohms, which means that the green and white wires belong to one of the humbucker's coils. So I should get a very similar reading from the other two wires. And yes, 6.8 kiloohms, very close to the first reading. So now we know these two pairs are our two coils. Next, I'll connect the white and black wires together and check the total reading. Here I get 13.7 kiloohms, which is a good value for a humbucker. That tells me one of these wires will be ground. It could be either, it doesn't really matter. What I'm not entirely sure about is whether this will keep the pickup in phase or out of phase. So let's see what happens if I connect the other two wires. I'll test black and white. In theory, it should give me the same reading, but polarity does matter. The easiest way to check is to look up Epiphone's color code online, since this is an Epiphone pickup. Again, I get 13. What I'm not sure of here is whether this connection will give us different sounds. There's just one way to know, and that connecting them. But this video is just about how to expose more wire, and this is how it is done. I'm going to join these two just to check what measure I get, just out of curiosity. The thing is that when wiring a humbucker, we have plenty of tonal options, in series and in phase, in series out of phase, in parallel in phase, or in parallel out of phase. Here we'll get about 1/4 of the total resistance. And that's exactly what we get, 3.44 kiloohms. So to wire the pickup correctly, we need to know which wire is the start and which one is the end of each coil. Now, we know that white and green are one coil, and black and red are the other. Honestly, I don't remember how to check the winding direction of a coil. I'll probably need to look up Epiphone's color code to be sure, but that's what the internet is for. And that's how we strip more wire to prepare a pickup. Another thing we like to do is use a piece of heat shrink tubing that allows us to keep enough ground exposed. We cut a piece, about 3/4 the length of the pickup. That's perfect. With a mini torch, we'll carefully shrink it into place. We'll also reinforce this area with another piece of tubing, about 3/4 of an inch long, and pass all the wires through it. We want to make sure this piece hugs all the wires. Then we use the torch to heat it up, so it shrinks and holds everything together. This prevents the ground wire from breaking and keeps it from touching other components and shorting out. It also protects the other wires from snapping or breaking when they move. This gives the wires some flexibility while keeping everything reinforced. This is how we prepare a pickup with multiple wires before wiring it up. You can also do this with coaxial cable, the 2-conductor type, like the one that runs from the output jack to the volume potentiometer or to the switch, in guitars like Les Pauls.